let me show you what I can do.
The blacked out couch.
Good evening, everyone. Just hopping in and saying hi, giving us a smooth, calm welcome before more of our participants and followers join. I hope everyone has been blessed. Brother GT, I see you in the audience, and I definitely want to let you know that many, many prayers have been going your way. Positive thoughts and love have been going your way. So thank you for taking out the time to join us, and we hope this conversation pours into you. Shonda, hey.
Hey, I thought I was connected to my headphones, but it disconnected.
You know, technology be like that sometimes.
Well, apparently I can't get it together with these headphones because remember the podcast?
Yes, yes, I do. It's okay, though. You had it worked out. Your tech was better than mine. Oh, I don't know what happened with me.
The sound?
Yes, when I just all of a sudden was sounding like I was underwater. Oh,
Oh, yeah.
mhm. But that's okay. We worked it out. It was some good downtime for the sisters. Although I do wish that I was in on y'all conversation. I listened to it and y'all was talking some real stuff. Like, wait a minute.
We got deep, didn't we?
Yes. Yes.
That's why they were saying we needed a whole nother podcast just for the break.
Just for the break. I know. We might take some of that and do some highlights during the off season. Some teasers.
That would be cool, like some shorts.
Yes. Some shorts
Yeah.
again. Mhm.
Hmm.
Yeah. All right. And it looks like we have a lovely new sister in the room tonight. I do not want to mispronounce your name. It looks like it's Miss Zania, but I'm not sure. So I want to just say hey to you and let you know that if you want to come off mute and hop on into the conversation, we are thrilled to have you. We also have Miss Nico here on tonight. How are you? It's been a while. I haven't talked to you since before your Vegas trip. All right.
It's in the corner, y'all. The mute button in the corner.
I was just about to say, not forcing anyone to speak, but it took me a while to learn how to navigate through Clubhouse. So the unmute is in the bottom right hand corner. It's real small little mic logo. Just push that and it'll take you off mute.
I just had the same issue just now, and how many times I've been in here.
Well, thank you, ladies. My name is Zena. Um,
Zena,
so,
beautiful.
so you were really, really close, but uh, I'm just here to listen and kind of gauge the conversation.
Of course, of course. Well, thank you for helping me get the correct pronunciation of your name. I do appreciate the extension of grace for me not saying it right. I'm a big stickler on that because my government name is Ade Kemi, but I go by Princess because it hurts my soul every time somebody get it wrong. So I want to make sure I'm addressing you by how you're intended to be called.
It is perfectly fine. I get called Zinnia all day long, so it's fine.
Thank you and welcome. We do hope that you enjoy the conversation on tonight. And Miss
All
Nico,
right.
did I see you come up off mute, Miss Nico? Nah, I think it was wishful thinking on my behalf. That's okay. All righty. Well, I'm going to sit here a couple more minutes. I know we usually have about a 10-minute grace period to let some individuals come on into the room. So I'll give it a couple more minutes and then I'll hop right on into our discussion for the night. Very blessed to have each of you here. Thank you again.
Thank you.
All right, all right. I think we'll go ahead and kick things off to be mindful of all of your time. So, I kind of want to start this conversation with check ins and good news because the conversation tonight will be centered around nurturing with trauma, an emphasis on motherhood, but really the nurturing with trauma is the biggest part of the conversation. And some of that can get heavy. So why don't we just start with check-ins and good news? What we got? What good things we have going on in life? Miss Shonda, what you got going on?
Man, I just been living life in nature mostly since I quit my
Yeah,
job.
yeah, yeah. Oh, I get it. I get
But
it.
I did find out, they doing an internal investigation to the situation with my job. So, and the lady who the HR lady is actually a black lady too. So I was like, okay, good. At least because the company that I was working for, very questionable about their racial hiring practices. But we're not gonna go into all of that. But you
Hmm.
know. the corporation that's over the company, the HR director is actually a black lady. And when I told her what was going on, she's like, no, because they like, ain't nobody just been working somewhere almost 9 years just about to walk out the door. Like, I'm not coming back to this place.
Yes, yes, I get it. I completely get it. Well, I'm happy to hear that they're doing the investigation and that they didn't just write off, you know, your experience and your complaints and your standards to be treated a certain way. That's super important. So I'm happy to
Absolutely.
hear that, and I'll definitely be sending prayers your way that things turn out favorably for you.
Thank
You're,
you.
you're so welcome. You are so welcome. And what about your daughter? Did the move in and everything go okay for her? How has she been acclimating? Congrats again to getting her on in for her.
Oh
That's
yes.
for
Oh
her.
my God.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
she's doing real good actually. And a lot more emotionally stable too. So, that's a plus on both sides. She's been a lot happier. So
Good, good. I'm happy to hear that. I really am.
thank
I,
you.
we trying to move on up too. That's the next goal. Is to purchase a home. We've been living in a home for the past, I think, 5 years. We've kind of actually been in a house, two different ones. But I have a vision in mind, and I'm not gonna settle for anything less than what I deserve. So I love hearing that your standards and your daughter's standards and your desires have been met because that gives me faith. You know, for sure. Let's see. What about me? Good news, good news. So maybe a general check-in. I don't really know how I'm doing because I've been so busy. Has anybody ever been so busy that you don't really know how you're doing?
Yeah, but you gotta check in with yourself, man.
I know, I definitely do, and that's why I appreciate coming to the couch because it kind of forces me to take a moment and to breathe and to set aside time to talk about life, to talk about how I'm doing. So I don't really know how I'm doing, but I know that I've been feeling two kind of ways. One, out of breath, and two, it just been feeling like my brain is tired. Like I haven't had headaches or migraines. I don't know if that makes any sense, but it's like my brain has been tired.
It makes perfect sense.
Yep, makes sense.
That's where I was at.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. So it's not just me. That makes me feel good. I needed that support. In terms of good news, I'll say that even though I have been busy and my mind has been tested, I feel like I've been progressing. Like if I were to compare Ade Kimmy now, Princess now, to Princess to the start of the year, she's she's bigger, she's wiser, and she's carrying and doing more, and that makes me proud of myself. I don't know really when the last time was that I could say that I'm proud of myself and where I am, but I can say that in this moment. So for me, that's good news.
That's good, man. Hang in there too, because honestly, this year has been a year of massive upheaval and changes for everybody.
Yes, yes, that part, that part. Maybe starting to transition into the topic of trauma. I don't know. Actually, Miss Nico, I see that you are mute. If you want to say something, you got some good news or a check in, just holler.
All right, I'm good. I'm good. Can y'all? Oh, y'all can hear me. I see my thing
Yes,
flashing.
yes, we can.
No.
Hey.
Hey, 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 hey! I am excited to be here. I am so sorry I missed the episode, but yeah, I'm just again kind of similar. That's why I can really relate. I've been super busy, so haven't done probably the necessary check-ins, but I am moving and grooving. Um, my good news, honestly, right now is just like my circle, like my people. They are just all progressing and doing well and making choices for them that's better in their life and all that good stuff. So even if you can't check in with yourself or don't know exactly how you're doing, to celebrate others is always a good thing. So that's where I'm at right now. I'm just celebrating my friends and family, those close around me that are doing well.
Love it. Love it. And I really appreciate how you have that village. So shout out to Nico's people. Round of
Yes.
applause, y'all. That is awesome. So what I was gonna say, I'm sorry if y'all hear beeping in the background. I'm trying to park my car, and there's just some cars driving behind me. But what I was gonna say when Shonda mentioned that it has been upheaval and massive transformations for everyone, I um I didn't really want to talk about this on the podcast and didn't know if I was gonna bring it up in this clubhouse room, but it feels befitting. At the start of this month, my cousin was murdered. And this is maybe like, I don't know, the 10th, the 11th funeral in my household since 2021. Not even 2020, but since 2021. It has been a rough 2 years. It literally feels like every 2 months somebody is getting buried. Um, and for this particular funeral, I did not get to see him. I did not get to be a part of the funeral at all. I was running the repast, but it's like I didn't even have the energy to. I didn't have the energy to go. And I think for me that was kind of a traumatic moment, just having yet another funeral to go to. And so I kind of want to pose a question to all of you. Not necessarily what is trauma per se, the definition, but I want to ask y'all that are here today, if you had to bucket trauma into 5 categories or 4 categories, what would it be? Is trauma an instinct? Is it a behavior? Is it an experience? Is it a curse? Or is it all of the above? What do y'all think?
I think overall it's an experience. Um, I mean, it's tied to like a stressful or, painful or disturbing, like act, something that occurred. So it's your experience of something. It's my thoughts.
I think you not putting a definition out there was kind of like interesting because it actually to me it falls in all of those categories. From my own experience, um I've experienced trauma, reacted because of trauma. I've had the whole fight or flight response like my whole life. Like I've been living in survival mode my whole life. So I think trauma falls into all of those categories personally.
I would agree. I would definitely agree for me. And I think it depends on how it's showing up as well. Um,
Yeah.
there have been times where I do feel like it's an experience, but then there are times where I feel like if I'm triggered, it becomes a behavior because of how I act towards those around me. Um, there are times where I feel like it's a curse. We've talked about this in a number of our podcasts. The brothers have talked about it, sisters, we have talked about it, how trauma can be embedded in your DNA. You can pass it down through to your children. So I think I would agree, all of the above for me.
And yeah, just kind of, I think all of those things still, it just boils down to how you react and interpret and hold on to and the experience. But I get what you guys are saying. But the behavior that comes from trauma is behavior. It's not the actual trauma, it's a reaction to trauma, it's the reaction to the experience. There is no trauma if nothing occurred. So, there has to be an experience. There has to be something that occurred that causes the behavior and that causes the curse and the repetitive carrying it on from one generation to the next. It didn't come out the clear blue sky that it carried on to the next person. There was an experience that occurred, and then it turned into being passed on and in our DNA. But I most definitely think it encompasses all those things, but there has to be like that experience first.
I think what we definitely have to understand about the behavior part of it, though, is that when we experience trauma and we are not self are conscious enough about how we're projecting that trauma out into the world, it causes trauma to other people. So
Yep.
it's not necessarily just the it being an experience embedded in your psyche or in your DNA, because now
Hmm.
you're projecting that out into the world, causing trauma to others.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. It falls under the same thing. If I'm carrying trauma around and I project that, then I just gave someone else a horrible experience. And now they have some trauma based on what I did, and that's their experience. And now that's why they now have a trauma experience, and now they might do the same thing, act out, carry it on, project it, and all that good stuff. So yeah, it's all in the same, but everything has a root, everything has a beginning. So I just think it starts there.
Oh yeah, for sure. That's like I had a discussion with my cousin about that. And she said something about hurt people, and I'm like, you do realize that those people that got hurt was hurt by somebody else. You know what I'm saying? Like it's a vicious cycle. You know,
Right.
you can't just come out here and say hurt people without acknowledging that the people that was hurt by somebody else.
Hey, can y'all hear me? Is it
Yes.
is it okay? Is it okay? Is it safe for me to speak now?
Yes. Welcome,
I'm
brother
okay with
Rodney.
it.
Come on, say your piece.
All right, all right. How's everybody doing? How y'all doing, sisters? I appreciate y'all for letting me chime in as always. Um, I wanted to kind of piggyback off of what y'all were saying. In my eyes, trauma is the experience. I think the behaviors, just from my viewpoint, I would more so describe the behaviors associated as triggers. But I think the trauma is rooted in an experience, and I think that once you start to put action to it, like you guys brought up the behaviors, you brought up projecting some of your trauma, some of your experience onto others. I think that those will be classified in my eyes as triggers. So the reaction to the trauma, in my eyes, is considered a trigger. The trauma is an experience.
I agree with that. What about the instinct though? What about the fact that our brains are just wired to be a certain way when it comes to trauma?
Yeah, so I think that the the way that we are affected, the way that our DNA gets rewritten, that's been kind of repetitive theme in a lot of the discussions on the official podcast episodes. How trauma can rewrite your DNA. It can become a part of your genetical makeup, right? Um, I still think that those are tied to the experience. Just in my eyes, just the way that I look at it, I think that when I put a verb to it, I think about triggers. The trauma itself being the source of those triggers, and I tie it back to an experience, something traumatic that you went through, something that affected you in a way, emotionally, mentally, or physically, or a combination of all of the above. And now it has altered the way that you either see things, the way that you react to things. So I think the reaction, in my mind, are the triggers. Speaking to, I think that was Shonda that just asked that the way that the trauma can kind of rewrite your DNA and determine some of your behaviors. um, that will be something else in my eyes. I don't know what to really classify it as, but I think that when I think trauma, I think about the actual experience that these alterations are rooted in.
Okay, I love it. I love it too. I guess I have a question to pose then. Seems like a lot of popular responses is that it's an experience. So why does it continue to last? Right? Experiences have a start and an end, but it seems like trauma lasts for longer than that.
My
If I
take
can
on that
Ooh,
answer,
is,
everybody came off
uh,
of mute for that
ladies first, ladies first.
well, my take on that is directly related to mental health. That's exactly the piece of mental health that's vital. Intrusive thoughts is why it continues and continues because we have a trauma, we have an experience, and then we relive it in our minds. And then, like Rodney said, we're triggered. So someone says something or does something, and then we're triggered by that. And so it kind of brings that trauma back to life. And so then we have to heal again to kind of get it buried, and then something can happen and it may come back to life, but it's kind of based on how we process is why it would continue to impact in more of a negative way, but with proper professional help or your coping skills or healing in some type of way, you can actually process a trigger like much quicker, and you're not affected like deeply and like long term when you may have some type of intrusive thought or some remembrance of that experience. But it can most definitely live forever because we re we revive it. We revive it with
We
our
re-
thoughts.
we program it in our memory. We can never
Yep.
Mm.
truly separate from an
Yep.
experience.
Exactly.
Okay.
So I think if we take it to like the root of the initial trauma, um, so if you look at it like in a this is gonna be like real abstract, but like in a dream sense, when you the dreams that you remember that are imprinted are those that leave an emotional imprint on you. So I think it's kind of the same thing like in real life. So certain memories that happen to us just leave this huge emotional imprint on us that comes with sensory things as well, certain scents, certain music that was playing, Princess, when you mentioned driving past a certain place, these sensory things as well as the imprint of the trauma is what makes it so difficult.
Is it safe? Is it safe for me? Safe for a brother? A male's voice with a little bit of bass. Is it safe?
Go ahead.
It's safe for the bass voice to come on in.
Okay, so here's the way that I'm going to take it. I'm going to take it at a different angle. The human brain is an extraordinary organ, and trauma, it falls up under the category of memories. So if we had to take it on the flip side, if you think about even some of your pleasant, some of your good, your memories that you go back to for happy places, they work the same way. You can remember certain scents that were in the air. You can remember, like Shonda said, the music that may have been playing, whether it's a good or a bad memory. The brain can reenact, can relive certain moments in time. So now, if you flip that around and these moments are bad moments for you, moments that may have affected you in a negative way, I believe that the brain works with even that much more power behind it in reminding you of those things. I believe there's just a reminder of certain memories, certain experiences, certain moments that happen in your life, whether they're positive or negative. The brain can reenact them because it's such a powerful tool. So, as it pertains to trauma, it becomes something that's everlasting, but it's everlasting just like some of your most precious, some of your good memories
Hmm.
are everlasting. So I kind of put it back on the power of the brain.
I'm gonna piggyback off of that
And I,
because I
oh
had
yeah,
to ask. I'm sorry. But when he said that, I had to ask my therapist, like, why is the only thing I remember from my childhood negative experiences? Like, I went to Disneyland and Disney World when I was a kid, and don't remember nothing much from either one of those experiences. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I said let me piggyback off of what you saying, because you absolutely right that negative, all of those negative experiences have so much more power than even the most beautiful positive experiences that you have. If you, and especially if you don't have the right mechanisms to help get through those things or heal them.
Mhm.
It's a defense
right.
mechanism.
I was. Hmm.
I'm sorry, just really quick. I'm just add to this, and I'll jump out of the way. But brother Bert Rogers, who's one of the mental health therapists on the brothers panel, in one of our episodes, he talked about the brain being by default it goes into the defense mechanism mode. So like if you are reminded of something that was bad or traumatic, the brain works extra hard to make sure that you're safe. So it reminds you in an even stronger way that, hey, this was something that affected us bad. I'm sort of triggered back towards that. So I need to remind you, is everything good? Like, do you need to get out of this? It's like he broke it down and he talked about it from a clinical standpoint. So I
Hmm.
apologize if I'm not able to break it down from a scientific method, but he said that the brain does work that way when it comes to negativity because of the defense mechanism. The brain wants to make sure that you're not putting us in a situation where we have to relive that exact same scenario again. So it reminds you kind of in overload.
Absolutely.
Right. So yeah, I was gonna again when you said like memory and when you talked about like remembering, it made me think of honestly it was a sermon a couple months back when I was at church, and it was about remember who God is and what God has done. So like just the actual act of remembering, it's like how you're processing something. Like that's what your remembering is. It's a thought process. And so off of something that was said as well, what we feed will grow. So if we feed those thoughts, those traumatic ones, again, when they come into our mind and we actually feed them and we focus and we spend time with them, those are the memories that will grow. If you did have a nice event experience when you were young, when that one may come up to your mind, you just let it go real quick. Like you may not hang on to it, really try to dig deep and remember the emotions you had that day and how fun it was or whatever, because that's not the memory that you put the most focus on. Sometimes we just kind of let those just come on in and come on out, but we want to hang on to those. But also, when you have a certain level of trauma, it blocks some of those other memories. Like I personally have a lot of memory issues because of so much challenges and trauma and things that I went through. And around the time, because like one parent passed in 85, one in 87. I moved with my grandmother. She passed 89. And when I talk to people who I grew up with and who I was around, they have these vivid stories. Like, you remember when we did this and we did that and we did this? And you know what I remember? I remember my dad dying. That's what I remember. So I can't remember all of those other things sometimes, but when I really, really try to focus in on it and when I really, really choose to feed the good memories, I literally go ask people what happened or what memory do they have, and I would try to really get that embedded and I would try to think of that thing over and over and over. But a lot of times we really do hold on to some of the more traumatic memories instead of really trying to hold on to more of the happier positive memories.
Yes. Yes. Yes to all of that. And there's a book, I don't know if you all have heard of it. it's a book that kind of talks about that. It was written by a Nigerian woman, and it's called "I'm Telling the Truth, but I'm Lying." And the
Mm.
whole premise of that book is, I'm gonna give you all my story, my life, the way that I remember it, but be mindful of the fact that my memories might be faulted, especially because of what we just talked about here, those defense mechanisms that the brain creates to protect itself from traumatic experience, because trauma does things to the body, right? Just like how people say stress
Mhm.
causes disease and it can cause you to have high blood pressure and all this and the other, trauma can do the same thing. And so, to protect your bodily functions, to keep you in a good mental space for your brain to function the way that it needs to, we need to live happy lives, and we have to find a way to not have as much trauma. So I really feel that. I feel
Yes,
that.
me too.
So I'm going to stretch you all then. Another question that I have, because the topic is nurturing with trauma. So we talked a lot about the trauma, but what about the nurturing? And I want to ask you all one question with three options, similar to what I did with trauma. The first is, I know what nurturing is because I've seen it and I felt it. I know what nurturing is because I've seen it, but I've never felt it. Or I have no experience with seeing nurturing or seeing someone be nurtured or feeling as if I've been nurtured. If y'all had to pick one of those three things, which one is most applicable to you?
I'm going
Can
with the
we
first
pick
one.
just naturally nurturing?
I'm going with the first one. I know what nurturing is because I've seen it and I felt it.
I go with that one too.
I have not necessarily felt nurturing. I will be honest about that. Um, I myself, however, am just a naturally nurturing person, so I don't think I needed anything to come in this world being like that. So I know my answer don't fall up under those, but that's the best. That's the best thing I can say. Because even as a little kid, like I was like a super nurturing person and one of a pretty toxic family. So
See, I was wondering if someone was going to give me that answer. Because out of all three of those, the one that sticks out to me the most is where I know what nurturing is because I've seen it, but I've never felt it. And I think, Shonda, yours kind of falls in line with that, where you've given it, but not necessarily seen it. So, for those who have, for those who answered that you felt it, what does it look like? And what sort of feelings does it arouse in you, I guess, being nurtured?
For me, and I may have a biased opinion, but when I think nurture, I think that females, I think that women are naturally nurturers. And so for me, when I think about the fact that I've been nurtured, if for me it started with, some of my the earliest women in my life, my mothers, my grandmothers, my aunts, cousins, just women in my family, women in my circle in general have all been nurturing in a variety of different ways. And so I kind of just go back to that, to like just some of the most basic nurturing that for me, in my opinion, I think is natural when it comes to women. I think that may be, Shonda made a comment that she's not necessarily ever felt nurtured, but that she's always felt that she was a naturally nurturing person. And for me, that makes perfect sense because she's a woman. And so that's just my opinion as a man. I think that nurturing is something that's natural for women, and when you've had good women in your life that genuinely care about your well-being, whether in your childhood, your teenage years, or your adulthood. I've felt that on all three different levels of my life. So I just go back to just the natural care from a woman.
And my thoughts on it is, depending on kind of how you see nurturing, I guess, and kind of in the definition, like the basic nurturing is literally feeding someone. I mean, caring for someone, like protecting someone. Those are kind of basic, but again, they can turn into all different, kind of levels. And when you first pose those, I almost wanted to go to the, like not seen it, not felt it, because I jumped back to some really bad memories. And I was like, oh man, I never really, felt that, or I never really seen that. But when I really thought it through from, beginning to end, I've had people care for me for sure. I mean, before my parents passed away, ridiculously nurtured, you know what I mean? Most definitely fed me. I got so many things that I asked for and wanted that others looked around like, man, she's spoiled. Why she getting that? Why she get to do this? Why she get to do that? Now I was, put to a very shocking halt, when my parents passed away because no one was trying to do those things for me. It was almost like I was punished because I did have such a great life. And now, oh, now the tables have turned. You got to stay here and you don't get to get all those things anymore. Um, but if I really focus on that time frame, then I would give a different answer. But if I focus on the whole journey thus far, I've seen it from, my parents and other family members. I obviously, not obviously, but I had a family member take me in because I was literally orphaned after not having a mom, a dad, or a grandparent. I was an orphan. So I had a family member take me in at that point. Just to take me in is nurturing, and the family member fed me and, protected me and raised me up until I was able, to be out on my own. So again, if I kind of focus on those trying times, I may give a different answer. But just to think about it overall, I most definitely seen it. And as a parent, I've most definitely felt it and provided it and got it back and all of that good stuff. So most of my nurturing in my current time really is through my children. Like I'm going to nurture them until the day I can't, and they provide it right back to me. So that's really in the current state. That's the thing that comes to my mind first.
I think if I really had memories of people actually trying to genuinely be there for me and care for me on a level without expectations and conditions, then I could say I had something to look back on, but I don't.
And that's your
Yeah,
story. Yeah,
yeah,
that's your
yeah,
story.
yeah. Well, I'll say real quick, Shonda, to you, I hope the spaces that we are creating are nurturing to you in some sort of way, and that,
Yeah.
we speak into you, and that we appreciate your presence, and that we create a space for you to just be you. But my heart definitely goes out to you for not being able to recall moments of
Yeah,
maybe
of
being
course.
unbalanced.
I
You have felt nurtured. I really feel for you there.
yeah, like I mean, up until recently, honestly, um I really, even my family, even people, friends and stuff that I've had in my life, people that I've had around me, it's always been what can I provide them, you know what I'm saying? And now as I'm in this space of just taking care of myself and loving myself and protecting my energy and protecting my peace, you know what I'm saying? It's very few people around me. Very few. And it's been like that for the past few years. So that's what really made me see that the people that I was dealing with, you know what I'm saying, wasn't for me. It wasn't people that I needed to have be associated with. But like I was telling my little cousin today, it's hard. It's one thing to be able to detach from friends or associates that mean you no good. It's a totally different thing to detach from an entire family that meant you no good. You know what I'm saying? But in order to grow beyond that, I had to detach in to some extent. You know what I'm saying? Like I haven't completely cut everybody off to the point that I won't talk to nobody type of stuff. But it's just certain stuff I will and won't tolerate from people, and my boundaries are very strong with my family now. But I coming up at least, up until I was maybe about 35, where I really started taking a strong, hard look at my entire life. And I was like, okay, this ain't working. You know what I'm saying? What's affecting me around me? Like, who am I still allowing to be around me and in my space that's still putting a knife in open wounds that I'm trying to heal? You know what I'm saying? So it is I have had nurturing spaces recently, but I don't look at being provided for on a material level as nurturing either, because as a parent, that's your duty, that's your responsibility, that's what you're supposed to do. That's not nurturing. I look at nurturing from an emotional standpoint, and that's just my perception, my view of it.
Yeah, so you and Nico both said things that striked up another question in me. And I think that's kind of like, where do your views on motherhood come from, right? Especially with both of you, strongly and courageously sharing that you all didn't have, the blue picket fence childhood upbringing, but you're both mothers. And so, where did you find yourself developing your principles on motherhood and learning how to be nurturing through your trauma?
Me, self-help. A lot of self-help, because I knew I didn't want to raise my daughter the way I was raised.
Right. And similar because you know how they say like the cycle will continue, like if you were kind of raised around a certain environment, atmosphere, or whatever, then you may kind of repeat those things. But then it's the opposite of it. It's like the in spite of. So I was very observant. So certain things that I saw between other parent child, relationships, and one being the fact that I had to live in households with parent child and I was like the outsider. So just seeing different things and just making a mental note like, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. Okay, I'm going to try that. Okay, I may do that. So just looking at those different experiences and seeing, and then like to what LaShonda said, when I actually got pregnant, it was pretty young. I think I was 17 and I had my first child at 18. But like I read so many books, it was ridiculous. So I was just reading books on parenting. I was reading books on how to like take care of infant, reading books on, like kind of how to separate those things because I pretty much felt I was damaged, but I knew parenting was going to like save my soul and it really did. So I like invested a lot of time on trying to really um focus on just doing the best I could as a parent. Not that some of the trauma and different things and spill over sometimes, and I had to recorrect or even apologize to my own children sometimes. But that's kind of where I got it from kind of seeing it done and deciding if I want to kind of do it that way or do the opposite way is kind of where it came from for me. And then also the memories of how my parents parented me for the time frame that they were around.
Yeah, yeah, I hear that. I hear that. I'm, not a mother, per se, in terms of having birthed children, but I definitely help support others in their journey. It takes a village. And for me, I have seen firsthand trauma show up in a parent's experience of raising their children, unintentionally so. I've talked to friends who have said, I didn't even mean to react that way. But my child did ABC, and it was just like instinctively, I threw something or I yelled something or I said something that I didn't even intend to say.
I can attest to that for sure.
Yeah, yeah, and it reminds me of a Bible scripture, Matthew 15 and 18. But those things which, come out of the mouth come from
Hmm.
forth from the heart, because when we hurt, when we feel, when we have unhealed traumas, they will just pop up that scripture, you know. But at the same time, on the flip of that, what I hear both of you saying is there is a love that I knew I deserved. There is a love that just my spirit and my soul felt like should have been present. And I'm not going to rob my children from
Absolutely.
Wowzers. Look, that is it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Wowzers. I tell my kids sometimes now not to be like bragging or anything like that, but I just say you have a Nico. I didn't. I didn't always have that growing up. I was like, so you got a Nico. So, please let me support you however I can. Please allow me to nurture you, allow me to provide you this information. My children are older now. My youngest is 19. And so anytime I talk to them or whatever, I'm just like, hey, here's how I see it. Here's, my suggestions or whatever the case may be. And then I'm like, there is absolutely no pressure. Take it, tweak it, or trash it. That's what I tell them. Like, if what I just said resonated and you can take it word for word, beautiful. If you need to tweak it to fit your life and to fit your circumstance and consequence, because don't be calling me for no consequence when you wanted to just go all willy nilly. But I'ma still have your back though. But tweak it for your life or just completely trash it because that doesn't fit your situation. And I just didn't quite hit the mark when I was trying to advise you. But that's what I tell them a lot. Like you have a Nico. And growing up, I didn't have that. I really didn't have someone telling me, try this, don't try this, do this, maybe, do that. So I didn't have a whole lot of that growing up.
that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna add on to what Nico was saying. I had something to say, but then my daughter started calling. But y'all know how my brain be functioning.
Oh, wait. That's funny because
But
my next question was gonna be, do y'all children ever, ever check you or ever, kind of call you out, and if you're receptive of it? But it seemed like your daughter was already on that line. She like, look, whatever my mom about to say, she talking about me. Let me call her.
I wanted to chime in real quick because I agree with the statement. There's um, I think that as people become parents, as people become adults, and then eventually become parents, they recognize that there may have been something missing from their childhood and or something that they felt like that they deserved, and they're not going to let their children miss out on that. I would go out on a limb to say all parents feel that way, even when it's unresolved trauma. Like even if it's coming from a place of unresolved trauma, I think that most parents feel like there was something that happened in their childhood that is determining the way that they parent, whether it's positive or negative. And I think that
Yeah.
one of the plagues of our community is that there is so much unresolved trauma. And the thing about unresolved trauma is that a lot of times you don't even know that it's trauma that you're dealing with that's going untreated and unresolved, and you end up projecting that on your loved ones, your children, your family members. And I think that's one of the things that's plaguing our community. So I just want to say kudos to all of you sisters. Because I listen in to all of y'all episodes. I listen in to all of the discussions, and like Nico said, a lot of us didn't have parents like that. I think that as as we grow as a society, as a culture, we've reached sort of a shift in the culture with today's generation of parenting. A lot of us are a lot more mindful, a lot more aware, a lot more emotionally intelligent than some of our predecessors were. So I just want to say kudos to everybody here for just taking those steps, because it all starts with acknowledgement and accountability in the right direction. But I do think that most parents, even when it's ill advised, they're kind of in that mind frame. There's something that happened when they were a child that they're either holding on to or trying to let go of.
Thank you. I agree.
Yeah, and honestly, that's where my forgiveness always kind of came in at. Like, for some reason, I knew that, like, at a young age. So that was one thing that kind of helped me get past some of the surface level of those emotional traumas. But I definitely needed uh therapy and help with the deeper stuff.
Yeah, we talked about that on our, I think it was our most recent Clubhouse, our most recent Unpacking from the Brothers episode, where it's very important as parents to look for resources to help you build, especially the areas inside of you that's broken, so that you can ensure that you are providing a better future for your children and a better childhood for for your children. And that's huge.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because if you healed, you become a fortress for your whole family.
So, is that one way that generational curses can be broken, or do we believe that generational curses can be broken and traumas kind of ended and not passed on?
Absolutely. I did it.
Yeah, I believe that. I most definitely believe that, and that's a part of it. Like you said, just getting those resources to repair your broken areas and making sure that you're coming from a whole place to where you are trying to provide those things. However, you're more aware, like you said earlier, you might shout out something and say something you didn't even know where they came from, or like that was just so to put those things out on the table so you actually are navigating through what you know could happen. And then that's building that self control, and again, just building that foundation and healing so that you're not just spouting out things that could be hurtful, like back to that hurt people. So you don't want to just be spouting out things from a hurt place and then hurting someone else.
And I think it's also I think it's wise of us to point out that the work is really truly never done. So even when you
Right.
get on the right path, you still have to continue to put in the work. Yes, generational curses can be broken. They can also be reignited if somebody in the bloodline decides to be laxed, to decides to say, "Oh, you know what? There's no more work that's left to be done." But I think that, and I say this as many times as y'all give me the mic, I'm gonna say this. I think that every day, the human body, the human brain, your heart has to rest, recharge, and heal daily. So it's
Hmm.
an everyday process because of the impact of how serious some of our traumas can be. Those triggers can be just as serious, and so it takes a dedication for you to constantly put in the work. I don't think that there's ever a such thing of saying, "Hey, I'm completely healed. I don't need to do any more work." And that just be it. I think that that's sort of a misconception as it pertains to healing.
I agree.
Yes. So maybe on that, in terms of triggers and things being reignited, coupling that with resources, maybe let's talk about those around us when it comes to triggers, traumas, and motherhood. Mothers in the room. What do you expect for your village? Or maybe more specifically, you didn't make the child by yourself. Last I heard, my belief is it's only one human that's done that. That's birthed someone by herself. So what do you expect from right? What do you expect from your co-parent? if they're present, right? Or their brothers in the room that are fathers. What can they do in terms of helping to recognize trauma and triggers? Or what if they come to you and say, hey, I don't want you doing ABC with my child? Do you take the opportunity to talk to them and tell them about why you might be behaving in a certain way?
Yeah, so I think what you can expect from the co-parent, whoever it may be, is that communication first and foremost. You want to communicate what your your goals are for your children and the route you want to take to like reach those goals and the beliefs that you want to try and instill in them. So you just want to really communicate that. And then I also think another piece of it is filling the gap. So basically, where I really can't do some of the things, or I don't have the skill or the resources to do some of the things, maybe the co parent does. Like, that's why it takes the village, because you may have to reach out to someone who could develop something in your child better, than you can. Um, and that just like reminds me, like I've had people over the years, they're like, send them to Nico, like send your kids to Nico. She gonna get them together. She gonna, see if she can talk to them or whatever the case may be. But I had a scenario with like a family member that would always want me to pull her child turned into two, like just out of trouble. Like, okay, talk to them. They're in trouble. See if you can, get them going. But then she would resent me because they actually would cooperate and respect my perspective, but they didn't cooperate and respect her perspective. And
Mm,
so I've always told parents, like, if your goal is for your child to be successful and your goal is for this and for that and for this, it's about them. So it actually shouldn't matter if maybe they get that from someone else. Long as you support who they, get it from. You know what I mean? Like, she reached out to me. It's not like I just jumped in her business. So like, if you reach out to me, whether they took that from you or from me, your ultimate goal was for your child to take that lesson, to take that information, and to be better because of it. So it's just that communication and then that filling in the gap. So making sure your co-parent or your village can fill in that gap for spaces you may not be able to fill for your child.
yes, I love that. And being receptive, like you were saying, allow them to fill in, allow them to help uphold you. Yeah.
Hmm.
What else? Anybody else? Anybody else got anything? Or did Nico quite literally drop the mic on us?
Uh-uh.
I hate I couldn't hear it. My phone tripped all the way out. Lost all service. Just
Uh-oh.
out of
I
there.
know.
Had to restart it.
Oh no, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Well, the question was, knowing that we carry traumas, especially if you are a mother and you can have triggers and generational curses can be reconnected. Um, you know, what do you expect from your village and or your co-parent in terms of helping to ensure that you're not repeating any generational curses or, you know, instilling trauma into your child was the question.
Ooh, you asked that to the wrong person. I don't know what Nico said, but my village, the village that I had, that I came with, ain't the village I won't teach my child a damn thing.
Yeah, Nico. I mean, she really did drop the mic, at least for me. Nico, correct me if I paraphrase incorrectly, but she said communication, and I'm
Hmm.
gonna add in trust. You have to have people around you who are going to genuinely love you enough to love your children, such that they can, advise your children in the right way or in ways that's productive for your children and constructive for your children, even if it might not necessarily align where you are.
Yep.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I definitely agree with that. Um, I just I had the my child is grown at this point. So, that's a little bit different for me. You know what I'm saying? Like I literally had to reprogram my kid when she came, you know. And on top of reprogramming myself, I had to reprogram a kid too. And I didn't want none of that to be happening to begin with. So, I don't plan on having any more children. And at this point, my relationship with my daughter has improved significantly on a communication level, like y'all said, and on the trust level. But me, I just didn't have anybody that I could depend on and trust to give those things to her because they couldn't give them to me.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we do commend you for being able to successfully raise your daughter, and now she has a son, and they are living together and forming their family and building their legacy to continue on. So we
Oh, and he giving
definitely
her
hope you.
hell for them teenage years she gave me hell.
Hey, we all
He
have
is
them rough
giving
children
her
at
the
some time.
blues, boy.
We all have been rough kids at some point. And those of us who said we weren't, I know y'all lying, the devil is a lie. We all had our moments where we were difficult for our
Listen,
parents. So it's kind of a rite
listen.
of
My
passage.
grandson, boy.
You are
You
so
see what I
funny.
put in the chat? That's the everyday thing between locking her out the house and running out the house and you know crazy. He crazy. He come over here. He act like a little sweet angel. That's all I need.
I know that's right. Well, at least he got somewhere where he know to act right, gotta be there all the time. That's awesome. All right, all right. Well, I appreciated all of you on this evening talking about trauma, talking about nurturing, and tapping, just touching the surface on motherhood. I'm sure this conversation is going to come back around in some form, some shape, some way as we continue our journey of meeting on the couch. But on this night, I think we can go ahead and wrap it on up. I thank all of you. I'm saying prayers for everyone here. I'm hoping for healing for all of you. It's a continuous journey, but we should still strive for it nonetheless. So, to everyone here, I hope you heal and be blessed.
Absolutely.
Thank
Thank you.
you. Y'all have a good
Thank you,
night.
y'all. Thank y'all.
Oh, yeah, I just figured out how to do those things y'all was doing. I'm slow. All
Yes.
right, let's you see that heart, y'all?
Come on, come on. We're gonna be lit next time in
Okay. All
2 weeks.
right,
Write it
so
all
next
on.
time, y'all
Okay,
gonna
she
know
gonna be
how to
all the way
stuff.
with the program.
Exactly, exactly. All
All
right,
right,
All
y'all.
right,
y'all.
y'all.
Listen,
You
y'all
be
have a good
safe.
night. Enjoy y'all
Yes,
weekend. Make sure y'all
same
tune in to the
thing.
brothers episode next week.
Yes,
And
tune on
we'll,
in.
we'll, we'll see
Absolutely.
y'all again.
All
All
right, y'all
right.
have a good one.
All right.
All right.